Good morning, everyone. I also want to add my appreciation and thanks to everything that everybody on this campus is doing, and especially with the goal of supporting our students and helping them be successful this fall. We know this is a really stressful and anxious time for everyone. I want to acknowledge that our students of color, as well as our faculty and staff of color, have experienced additional trauma this summer in the light of the killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, and the constant acts of racial injustice in our country that they experience every day. As a campus community, we need to address these issues, and especially we need to support our underrepresented students. So I would like to take a few minutes to talk about some of the things that we're doing as it relates to COVID and how we're supporting our students. So we're asking all students to do an educational video about COVID-19, so they're aware of the risks, they're aware of the educational information that they need to know. And at the end of this video, they'll sign a Badger pledge, which indicates their commitment to following the appropriate safety behaviors and guidelines. We've done a lot of information. We've sent a lot of information to students. We've done a number of presentations to parents and students. There's been a lot of emails and communication. We had a town hall this week for graduate students. We are planning a town hall next week, more focused for undergraduate students, so that we can be really clear and transparent about our expectations and the accountability that will come with that as well. A few other pieces of support, again, as we know that this is a really stressful time. We saw that in the spring when we went to virtual learning, and we're so grateful for the extra emphasis that our faculty and staff had worrying about students. There is a link on the Dean of Students Office website that allows people to talk about a student of concern. So if you're worried about a student, or they're not behaving okay, or they're not showing up in class, or you're just worried about their mental health, we really encourage you to fill out that form, and then we will follow up with that student. Again, we're worried about isolation and how our students are feeling, and we're trying to provide even additional support and outreach to our students. We have set up events for campus events, but also for all of our student organizations. And all of these event guidelines require that our students and our student organizations follow the most recent Dane County and Madison public health guidelines, obviously including masks, social distancing, the number of participants that can be engaged in those spaces. And what we're trying to do then is also provide safe opportunities for our students to have social opportunities. So you'll see more tents on campus, and we're going to allow students to reserve those tents so they can have their student organization meetings. We know it's better and safer for our students to be outside than it is inside, and so we're going to try to provide some additional opportunities for students so they can socialize and still engage in some of their opportunities in very safe ways. I want to make sure you know UHS has a 24-hour nurse advice line, and we always have our mental health crisis line for after hours. And we will continue to be providing all of those services for our students, primarily virtually, but we also know at times the best way to handle some of these more urgent situations will be in person. Our unions are only going to be open to students, faculty, and staff, and you will have to show your ID in order to go into the union. Again, this is a way to control density. This is a way to make sure that people are being very, very safe. And we're going to try to be intentional to provide study spaces throughout campus so that students have access to those spaces in a safe way. Finally, I just want to talk about enforcement. I know this is a high concern. We've seen these issues nationally. This is kind of one of the benefits that we have about opening later that we're learning from other institutions across the country. We are absolutely going to have strict enforcement of our public health guidelines on and off campus. Every single person has talked about this. There is an incident report online specifically related to COVID that anybody can fill out if they are worried or seeing anybody, but this is really for students that are not following those guidelines. This is for behavior both on campus as well as off campus. Carl, the provost, talked about students in the classroom. If they're not following these guidelines, then students will not be allowed to be in class, plain and simple. But I know people are worried about behavior off campus as well. And we sent one email to students this week. We will be sending another email to students next week that will be talking about and reinforcing the strict guidelines that we have. We are also partnering very, very closely with our city officials to make sure that good communication is happening. So if a student is found in violation of the city public health guidelines and they could be fined by the city for not following guidelines, we will know that information so we can take appropriate action as a university as well. Our code of conduct allows us to both manage on-campus and off-campus behavior, so we are increasing our collaboration with our city colleagues to make sure that both sides are aware of situations that are happening. I also want to acknowledge that our fraternities and sororities have done amazing work, and they themselves have decided there will be no social events with alcohol or social events this fall at all. And again, that's their commitment to providing a safe experience. At the same time, those spaces are similar to our residence halls. They have a number of students that are living together. So what may look like a social event is really the members of that living unit who are outside playing football or engaging in different behavior. So working really, really closely with the fraternities and sororities and really all of our off-campus students to make sure they understand the seriousness of this, make sure they understand the consequences that could happen, and our enforcement will be held and will be very, very strong.